This was a question that countless beings in the star stream received over many years. Why the hell does the scenario exist? The answers to this question were different. For example, the returning Kyrgios Rodgrim said, "Without it, the universe would be too lonely." The constellation Queen of the Darkest Spring replied to the same question, "Are you asking me why food exists?" The Demon King Asmodeus's reply to the same question was as follows, "It is a small destruction to prevent greater destruction." The answers might be romantic or philosophical to people who heard it. However, romantic and philosophical were only luxuries for those who were full in the first place. Therefore, the demon Earl Tentasio on the second floor of the Dark Castle, the scenario meant the following. It is fucked up. This was his way of speaking, although technically they weren't his own words. Anyone who entered this space would say this after 50 years. Of course, if they managed to survive 50 years. I'm tired. The river running through the Abyss Plains was a tributary of the Demon World's River Phoenix. One might ask how there was such a huge plains on the second floor of the Dark Castle, but naturally Tentasio was different. There were only two things he knew. First, he had to reach the top of the vast plains, and second, he hadn't managed to do it in 194 years. Damn it, if only it wasn't for that Dokubi's offer at the time. The memories from 194 years ago were still vivid. Do you want to become the 73rd Demon King? Demon King. It was the long-cherished dream of all demons. Can I become the Demon King? He had asked. He was a third-grade demon, and still far from rising to that status. It was hard to climb up, no matter how many low-grade demons he ate. During that period, Tentasio was tempted by a being more demonic than a great demon. You are lacking a story, not strength. What does that mean? You will find out if you participate in the scenario. Thus, Tentasio was put into the Dark Castle scenario. He tore down many demons and slaughtered the races that came up from the first floor of the Dark Castle. Over 194 years, Tentasio had become one of the 10 strongest demons on the Dark Castle second floor. However, it was up to here. I can't go up to the third floor. The Dark Castle's third floor. This was where the essence of a Demon King was sleeping. In order to get there, he had to beat the strongest beings on the second floor. However, raising strength and coins wasn't enough. The best beings on the second floor weren't the strongest simply because of strength. The thing Tentasio was lacking? The constellation Lady of the Brocade Sleep wants to talk to you alone. The constellation Lady of the Brocade Sleep is curious about your setting. Setting? Fucking bastards. I know what I'm made of. He didn't like the constellations, but it was pleasant to see a constellation wondering about him. The constellation wondering about him meant that new people were coming up from the first floor of the Dark Castle. It meant the enjoyable game would start from now on. A group of men and women appeared. Tentasio smiled at the sight. Welcome, you bugs. This is the second floor of the Dark Castle. Tentasio enjoyed speaking the lines of an ambassador like it was a habit. As expected, some of the bugs came forward and asked him, What is this place? Who are you, a guide? Are you perhaps a Dokubi? Dokubi. They were existences that Tentasio hated the most. Still, he endured it and opened his mouth. There would be a time for sweet rewards after the patience. The second floor of the Dark Castle is a world of survival of the fittest. Only those who have their strength acknowledged can move on to the next floor. Isn't it a simple rule? Raise your hands if you need further explanations. What does it mean to have your strength acknowledged? How do we... By doing this. Tentasio's arm stretched out and the head of the speaking man literally exploded. The bugs had frightened expressions. This was Tentasio's favorite moment. What? Shit, it's a trap! Tentasio laughed and licked the blood that splattered from the man's neck. Protect the queen! All the incarnations rushed towards him, but Tentasio didn't mind. A strong energy rose from his body. The demon nobility went from Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, and Baron. The Viscount and Baron graders were fairly common, but the difference started from the Earl grade. Demons from the Earl grade had a story. a story. It only opened when specific situations occurred. The story Bug Slaughter has begun. Quack! Every time his hands moved, the humans died like bugs. This story was obtained by slaughtering hundreds of thousands of players in 194 years. It showed him overwhelming power against those who were lower than him. The constellation Lady of the Brocade Sleep is surprised. The surrounding incarnations quickly became corpses or were wounded. It is too dull. Some incarnations seemed useful, but more of them were garbage. At most, they could be transformed into 5th grade demons. Then Tentasio's gaze stopped on someone. You will be 4th grade. Tentasio grabbed the neck of a woman and lifted her up. The hair of the woman scattered. A broken crown rolled around. She was the king of beauty, Min Ji-won. Tentasio opened his mouth. You must be the leader of these guys. He liked her strong gaze. This woman's story must be quite delicious. I will ask you 2 things. Where do you come from? Telling you something like that, I've seen many bugs like you. Tentasio made a cruel smile and trampled on one of the Hwarang. Min Ji-won paled as she looked at the broken skull and brain matter. Oh, wait a minute. Puke! Puke! Stop! Earth! We're from Earth! Tentasio laughed. Earth? Tentasio remembered it as a planet full of rich stories. The Demon Kings. Earth is a cradle for stories like that. There were many prey and an abundant place with stories. Tentasio licked his lips. Bug, who has the most stories among you? Stories? What is that? As expected, she didn't understand him. Who is the strongest among you? Min Ji-won shook as Tentasio's yellow eyes gazed greedily at her. Then what is the scenario? I just told you. How can I understand those symbolic words? I moved with Han Soo-young towards the altar for the 2nd floor. We encountered a few demons on the way. Needless to say, our progress was smooth. It was because I used the status of a constellation whenever I saw a demon. Key! The dark trackers who encountered my eyes screamed and trembled. I might not be a narrative or upper grade level, but once I became a constellation, my presence itself was different. In other words, I could exercise considerable influence over those lower than me with just a glance or remark. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is disappointed in the too easy progress. The constellation Scribe of Heaven says you need greater adversity. It was a sweet potato when difficult, but boring when it was too easy. I didn't know which one to cater to. Shouldn't there be days like this sometimes? It was the first time a scenario was easy. I was collecting the demon proofs one by one when a familiar voice was heard in the air. Kim Dokcha, don't you look good? Did you open the Dokkaebi bag alone? I could tell straight away who was speaking. I grunted and sent back a message. Who was the one who suddenly disappeared? It was an intermediate Dokkaebi. Who has a big head now? I couldn't come because I was busy. In any case, it is late, but congratulations. A new constellation emerged from my channel. It's very emotional. Is the channel running well? Yes, I thought the Incarnation Seekers would leave after you became a constellation, but it actually became better. Everyone has come to watch the castle scenario, so it's hectic right now. We might have to expand the channel soon. That much? Indeed, it was rare for an incarnation to become a constellation during the scenario. However, there are some who dislike you. You should be careful. Honestly, you aren't a constellation, but your status isn't completely established. It was as Bi-hyung said. I was a constellation, but my stigma hadn't woken up yet. In other words, I was currently more like a half constellation. I heard you're stronger than you, Jung-hyuk, but honestly, I'm stronger. Oh, Kim Dokcha, isn't this different from your usual reaction? Do you feel a sense of rivalry? I'm a constellation. He is an incarnation. It is natural for me to be stronger. Is it really like that? What are you trying to say? Did you come for a fight? I think the child will be born soon. I need a story to feed her. You are her father and should play the role of a parent. I understand. I'll get it for you. Brat. I like you because you understand quickly. Then I'm asking you. It was almost time for the 41st regression Hyunsungs to wake up. I looked back and saw the party members collecting demon proofs from the bodies of the demons. Does everyone have enough proofs? Hyunsungs carefully raised her hand. I am still lacking. Gil-young also. I can help. She seemed like she would be annoyed, but surprisingly, Han Soo-young took good care of Hyunsungs. Lee Hyunsungs was carrying Lee Gil-young on his back and spoke to me. Dr. Shi. Yes? Can I ask you something? What is it? Lee Hyunsungs had barely escaped from Han Soo-young's nightmare, and he still seemed unable to believe I had survived. Sometimes he would grab my arm or my head. Lee Hyunsungs touched my head and then opened his mouth. In the past, I lost an empty cartridge in the army. That must be a big problem. Did you find it again? I found it. You must have been in trouble. Why are you saying this? It was found out of the blue 1 month later. Despite my confused expression, Lee Hyunsungs still looked serious. From then on, I kept the empty shell in my pocket. Isn't that a violation of military rule? That's right. I was amazed that he nodded so casually. I nodded curiously. I see, but why all of a sudden? No, I was suddenly reminded of the past. I looked at him and didn't know why he was saying this. Surely he didn't mean to cut off my head and put it in his pocket. In any case, it meant he was glad I was alive. We soon reached the altar that would lead to the second floor. We had enough demon proofs, and the only thing left was to place it on the altar and wait. At this time, Han Soo-young asked, Is that Ajashi coming with us? I turned and saw she was pointing to the pink kid, Kim Yong-pal. I nodded and ordered, Kim Yong-pal she, lead the way. Huh? Kim Yong-pal freaked out while Han Soo-young's eyes narrowed. What is that Ajashi for? Have you forgotten? The last gateway to the second floor. Those who collected the demon proofs on the first floor could only go up to the next floor if they hunted the demon summoned after placing the proofs on the altar. However, the demon summoned from the second floor was based on the level of the weakest person in the party. Han Soo-young nodded like she understood. So that's why you're putting the weakest person in the lead. Exactly. Kim Dokja is the best at being shameless. It isn't being shameless, but strategic. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is amazed at your awkwardness. The constellation Bald General of Justice wants you to show the dignity of a constellation. What was the dignity of a constellation? I didn't make it through difficult scenarios by focusing on my dignity. I was a constellation, but sometimes I needed to play it smart. Han Soo-young said, Then this gateway will be easily passed. As long as nothing happens. What can happen? Sometimes a demon will be summoned regardless of our level. I placed the demon proofs on the altar as I said this. The demon proofs have been placed. A demon appropriate to test you will be summoned. There was a blinding light from the altar and the demon started to be summoned. A colorful light shone. If my prediction was correct, someone on the level of Kim Yong-pal would come out. Maybe it was the demon Baron Veer, the weakest of the demon nobles on the second floor. I would be able to suppress him without even using my constellation powers. The demon who wants you is on the second floor. Eh? A demon unrelated to your level will be summoned. Han Soo-young stiffened as she heard the messages. Shit, what is this? Is this what you were talking about? Demon Earl Tentasio has descended. Earl? Majestic horns rose over the shoulders. The demon who appeared in the colorful spotlight was a powerful existence whom Veer couldn't even compare to. A cruel smile was on his face as he opened his mouth. I see. Are you Yu Jing Hyuk?